Welcome to Minishift. And this special episode, we are going to be doing the latest MCU film following on the monumental success of Endgame with Spider-Man Far From Home. Yes, exactly. Wait, were there any thwips in this movie? I don't know. I don't remember hearing any of those specific sound effects, but you know, it's very classic Spider-Man. Yes. So, what did you think about Spider-Man Goes to Europe?
Well, first, hi, I'm Ev.
Oh yes, hi, I'm Chris. I keep forgetting to do the introductions. That's my bad.
No,
and I'm too excited. I just want to get into the brunt of it, especially regarding this film. So,
yes, well, this is a very, very fun film. Very class. I felt this was like up until now, Spider-Man 2 has been my definitive. That's what Spider-Man should be for movies.
Yep.
Until now, this movie, I'm like, there were moments where I'm like, this feels like Spider-Man at his peak.
This feels like ripped straight out of the comics.
Absolutely.
Quite literally in some respects, in the best way possible.
Yeah. There's a scene of him swinging through building to building, and I thought that just feels, one strip straight from the comics and two at the heart of what it is.
Absolutely. I thought this movie was fantastic as well. Like, I've joked off mic before that if Batman is the closest thing I have to a religion, then Spider-Man is a patron saint. And I love him in so many respects. And this movie, I think, is definitely one of the best Spider-Man films we've gotten so far. Really similar to, like, Spider-Man Homecoming. I'd say I maybe even prefer this a little bit to Homecoming in some respects. We'll get into that later in spoilers. But I think this is just a really fun Spider-Man adventure that does a really fantastic job of balancing the more traditional teen, high school, romance, drama aspects with some really great action and superheroic stuff. And just this package that's like really crisply put together. It's clear everyone is having a good time and on the same page of what type of movie this is. It has some great action. It's really funny. It's a really nice kind of like breath of fresh air after Endgame. As much as we loved Endgame, obviously, this feels like almost like a palate cleanser afterwards. Like, this is going back to the fun MCU that we kind of know and love beyond just the big dramatic end and deaths and everything like that. So I thought it was really, really great. And
it was nice to see a lot of those references and little things that you don't get so much in the very serious Endgame, and things like a happy Hogan.
Yeah, living up to the name, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And
horny Hogan as well, apparently. But, yeah.
And some of the kids and the characters and dealing with everything that came after Endgame, it really it hit the right note of not being too depressing, but also not taking the mickey out of everything that's come past.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the film especially has a very difficult balancing act following something as dramatic and in frankly many ways depressing as Endgame and what happened over the course of Infinity War and Endgame. And I think they do it in as tactful way as possible without like relying on it too much. Like, I would love for them to have gone more into some of the like actual implications of the end of Endgame, but this is not the movie for that. Like, it's clear they want to acknowledge it, they want to address some of the things that have happened, and then just move on to the story that they actually want to tell. So and I think they did a good enough job. I'm still hoping sometime down the line we'll actually get some more extrapolations of what has happened in the MCU post Endgame, but this is still great nonetheless. Yeah.
And I'd love to talk about the new addition to this movie in Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, I love Jake Gyllenhaal.
I loved him. He was so charming in this. I could feel everything.
He's so good. I mean, he's fantastic in almost everything and has like a perfect face.
Yes.
Which is just, you can't really get away from that. But I think he's really fantastic. I think he has a really great relationship with Tom Holland. I suspect they have a lot of real life chemistry on set and in real life. I've been watching some of like the press interviews and just the two of them going around to promote the film, and they seem just really great together. And I think a lot of that really shows up on screen. So yeah,
absolutely,
it's really fun. Do we want to get into spoilers then, or?
Sure.
Yep.
Just quickly, for those who haven't seen the movie yet, we do highly recommend go see it and then turn this podcast off now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is I mean, look, there are spoilers in most MCU movies, but this is one definitely that your experience, especially if you are not particularly familiar with the comics, will be so much better if you see this spoiler-free. Warning! This podcast contains spoilers.
Listen at your own risk.
And, I mean, we all knew Mysterio was going to be the bad guy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, I mean, like, he's quintessentially, like, manipulative and illusions and everything like that in the comics. And I think the way they did him in this film, even though it was predictable, like, everyone knew. Every comic fan knew where it was going to go. I think where they went ultimately was just really satisfying and a really perfect rendition of Mysterio on screen.
This is the one thing as soon as I walked out of the film, the first thing I thought was the MCU has now taken two of the sort of campiest villains of the comics that no one took seriously.
Yeah, kind of B-listers in some respects. In Vulture as well, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And basically elevated them to something really menacing and really entertaining.
Really good. They're 2 for 2 now. Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home have both had great villains and both distinct villains, which are not only kind of faithful to their comic origins in a lot of way, while still being distinct and still being really compelling characters in their own right. I mean, I've always loved Mysterio, because even if he's a bit of a B-lister and a bit silly, he's always been like a classic fun Spider-Man villain. But he's never been one for like big drama and pathos or impact the same way Doc Ock or Green Goblin is. But I think the way they did him in this movie, particularly in a post-Endgame world, was really fantastic. Like setting him up as like this special effects artist who kind of wants to set himself as basically like the fake news of superheroes. When he's Syndrome. Like people have definitely made that comparison to Syndrome, though I would also argue Mysterio was Syndrome before Syndrome. But anyway, no, he's really fantastic. I think he fits into this world incredibly well, and I think the rendition on screen is not only comic accurate but also works incredibly well in live action too. So. Yes,
and I love the little changes they made now that Mysterio is less of a person, now of a team of all the disgruntled ex-Stark Industries people.
That's such a good tie-in as well, isn't it? Like the bath technology from Civil War, I never expected that to come back in this way.
No.
And it was just, I mean, it's inherently meaningless. You can just say that, he invented some illusion technology beforehand, but doing it like this, I just thought added so much to the character and just the lore of the MCU and everything, and I thought it was great. So,
and with the drones, it makes everything feel that more realistic. Like in the scope of this greater universe, it felt, instead of just being like a power or some very outside super science magic, it actually felt like this is a natural progression of how science and technology has evolved in the MCU.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, initially, one of the things I've always found kind of funny about Mysterio is, like, since he's always using special effects and trying to make things look like magic when it actually isn't, some of the special effects that he uses is absolutely, like, ridiculous. Like, they take usual, like, movie magic and special effects to the most extreme thing possible. But in this, they made it more realistic than I expected, which is not something I ever anticipated for someone like Mysterio, which is great. So, and we need to talk about that illusion sequence in Berlin as well.
Yes. I was just about to say that.
So good. Man, that's ripped straight out of the comics. I loved it so much.
I loved it too. It was just, it took everything an audience normally expects from cinema and used that against them. And used it against Spider-Man, and it was great. And then there was twist after twist after twist, really adding to that Mysterio character.
Yeah, which is just so perfect for him as well. But I mean, just even everything in that sequence, from like an undead Iron Man rising from the grave, it's like such a great visual or being thematically relevant, and the giant Mysterio as well, and even Mysterio, even Spider-Man being trapped in like the fishbowl head and all that too. Like all that is such quintessential comic book iconography, and for it to show up in this film and not only be not silly but also be incredibly compelling and done in such a way that it's really great. I was legitimately impressed. Like that was really fantastic.
Yes. And now that we're in the spoiler section, I feel we should also bring up the end credits. Mid-credits and post-credits scenes.
Sure. So, I mean, we can definitely hypothesize if we want to where the MCU might go from here. I thought it was fantastic that they got J. Jonah Jameson back.
That was my main point.
JK's, I mean...
So great back.
He's so good in those original 3 films that it's kind of impossible to imagine anyone else in that role. So
absolutely.
He was really only the only right choice. Yeah, in so many ways.
But now he's with his comic counterpart in the new age, being an online sort of news talkback radio / internet host.
Yeah, he's kind of like almost an Alex Jones-esque type of like conspiracy theories, spouting fake news, which is not only so appropriate for the ideas of this movie, but also leading on from Mysterio and all that, and even gives them a decent motivation to think, Mysterio, who is this stand-up superhero that everyone's been worshipping recently, claiming that Spider-Man is a terrorist who tried to kill a bunch of people. Like it's, I don't know, I found that not only legitimate, but also a really fantastic way of bringing him in. So, I'll be very curious to see where the sequel goes. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're probably going to get Scorpion, to be honest, considering Matt Gargan was set up in Homecoming.
Yep.
And in the comics, Jonah Jameson basically pays for a bunch of creates Scorpion by paying for a bunch of experiments on him. And now that he knows who Peter Parker is as well, like I don't know, all that's fitting together, which means potential Sinister Six down the line and all that too, which has me very excited. But yeah,
and a possible new Mysterio with the lackey of Mysterio sort of taking over, doing the downloading.
Yeah, sure.
All that stuff.
If we want to speculate for
Speculating a bit, but
Yeah.
I feel they've left enough clues open to keep the character as a legacy character moving on.
I have a sneaking suspicion that if they wanted to, they can just say that Jake Gyllenhaal, like Quentin Becker's not dead.
Yeah.
They could bring him back if they wanted to. And I kind of hope they do, because he's really fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that the only reason they got Jake Gyllenhaal was because he knew it was just going to be for the one film. Which, if that's the case, it makes me sad, but I totally get it. But yeah, like, either way, they can open it up to just, there's going to be another Mysterio, or just, Jake Gyllenhaal faked his death in one way or another. There's a million, like, this is comics. There's a million different ways they could do that if they want.
No one's ever dead in comics.
No one ever dies. So, yeah. No, really fantastic. Do we want to talk anything else about the movie? Like, I thought Tom Holland was great. The whole cast was great. I think Zendaya had a lot more to do with Mary Jane this time too, which was nice.
She had a character, which
She
I'm
did.
very glad.
Yeah, she was just a little bit snarky-ish in the first film. Just didn't really have a lot to it. But here they kind of flesh her out a little bit more and almost made her
They
feel...
gave her a reason for the snarkiness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, I think she's great. I think she's a really fun depiction from Mary Jane, especially considering some of the more questionable ones that have been in the comics and the other films.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I thought she was great.
And always good seeing Melissa Tomei, even if her role was a bit more diminished.
Yeah, she only
this
had a couple
time.
of scenes, didn't she?
Yeah,
So,
which was disappointing, but any Melissa Tomei is good, I find.
She's a great Aunt May, and she did have that really fun ongoing joke with Happy Hogan. So Jon Favreau was always a great addition.
Yes.
Like, we owe so much of the MCU's success to him. Like, Disney in general owes him so much. So yeah, I think it's really great that he can kind of continue to show up in this capacity, which is fun. So very cool.
Yep.
Oh, well, is there anything else you want to touch on, or shall we call it at that?
No, I think that's pretty good.
Yep. Spider-Man Far From Home, or Spider-Man Fake News. Go see it. I mean, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you've probably already seen it, but...
And look, if you're listening to this part, you've seen it. It's the spoiler section.
That's a very good point. I mean, I'm hoping at the very least, because you should have, because definitely spoilers. I mean, I do want to briefly mention that exposition scene when Mysterio finally starts going through his plan.
Oh, yeah.
Silly, but really fun. Really, really fun way of doing that scene. So it's I don't know. This movie really impresses me. This feels like one that I've still only seen it the once, but I'm definitely going to go see it again. Yep. And a few views down, this might end up being my favorite live-action Spider-Man film. Still doesn't hold a candle to Into the Spider-Verse. Then again, like 99% of movies don't. But still really fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, fare thee well.
But
I?
was the Italian line that they used in the movie.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.